This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of the MSC Grandiosa this week. And as always, staff writer Richard Sims on deck with cruise news. Hey, Richard.
Hey there, I really want to be on a deck.
I wish we both were.
Long.
Yeah.
Right?
we start things off with a story that every Carnival passenger needs to hear.
You're right, they really, really, really do, Doug. As most people know, there's a big change coming where Carnival's loyalty program is concerned. The VIFP program is out of here, and in September, they'll be rolling out Carnival Rewards. That's not the news, though. It's something that a lot of people are unhappy about, but it's not the news. What is the news is that in order for your VIFP status and points to be transferred over to the new program, you actually have to register with the new program and accept the terms and conditions. This is like, all to do with privacy and privacy rights and things like that. But it's so, so, so important because when the switch takes place on September 1st, anyone who hasn't registered and accepted the terms of service will lose their status. Now, if there's a plus side to this, it's that if you currently have the Carnival World MasterCard and you've been accumulating fun points there, you don't have to do anything. They will automatically be rolled over into the Carnival Rewards program. But again, and I really want to stress this, that's only fun points on your Carnival World MasterCard. So like I have one, and every time I buy something on Carnival, I get 3 times the points. So I've got a nice little stash of those points will automatically roll over. You don't have to do anything. But it's important. You really have to go and register and agree to the terms and conditions if you want your VIFP status, meaning all those days that you've sailed and the points that you've earned from that. If you want that to carry over to the new program, you have to go and register and accept the terms of agreements. So just get that done. Do it now. Don't wait until September when you might forget. Do it now.
In Carnival, we'll send an email. They're doing it in batches right now. I do have a question, just for clarity here. You mentioned if you have the Carnival Rewards MasterCard, you still have to enroll and opt in, or are you already good?
You do still have to enroll and opt in,
okay,
but you don't have to do anything. Like, you don't have to contact the credit card. You don't have to do anything like that.
Okay.
That will automatically roll over into the new program.
Yeah, and a lot of people are wondering why they're doing this. It's because when a loyalty program is tied to credit cards, by law, there's certain terms and conditions that have to be accepted. So that's why you're having to go back in and enroll, because you're basically going just from a loyalty program to anyway you look at it, a credit card loyalty program, right? So it's tied there.
Yeah,
so that's why why we're having to do that. And since we're talking about Carnival, we might as well talk about what went down in a Miami courtroom this week.
Yeah, I kind of hate these stories because they play into that image of Carnival being a line where people behave badly. But in this case, a woman behaved badly. A 44-year-old woman from Ohio named Jennifer Frost was sailing on the Carnival Sunrise. While she was in the Lido buffet, she had this, it sounds like a really awkward encounter with a 17-year-old. Now, this is not going in the direction you think it is. Apparently, she it sounds as if the woman had a little too much to drink. And she started to sort of try and join the conversation that this 17-year-old and her travel mates were having. And they kind of blew her off, and the 17-year-old walked away. But the woman, Jennifer Frost, caught up with her and just unexpectedly punched the kid in the face, breaking her nose, and then tried to run away. Luckily, there were witnesses, and they sort of helped security track her down, and she was detained. What's a little bit weird is that somehow when the ship arrived back in Miami 2 days later, now this was back in March for the record, when the ship arrived back in Miami, somehow she got off the ship without the ship security going and handing her over to the police or anything like that. But it's all sort of come out in the wash. And when she went back to Ohio, she got an attorney and she turned herself in. She came back to Florida and turned herself in. And this week was in the Miami-Dade courtroom where she was charged with assault and eventually released on $2,500 bond. Presumably, this will lead to further proceedings in the courtroom later on down the line. But yeah, just nasty. Nasty.
And perhaps the biggest story of the week, and it's very fluid, I will say, so it's likely to change 10 times by the time you hear this, but the developing one involving am I saying this right, Richard? Hantavirus on a cruise ship?
You are, hantavirus. Okay. And yeah, that is a really good point. By the time people listen to this, there is every chance that this story has changed, because even just in the last couple of hours as we were preparing to record, what I was planning on saying has changed because of new development. So this is the latest as we record. This is another of those stories that I kind of don't love reporting because it plays into the reputation ships have where things like neurovirus are concerned. I'm willing to bet that outside of our site, there aren't many people that have covered this without breaking out the old Petri dish analogy. But okay, here is what we know and what's important to know right now. As you've heard by now, there's a ship called the MV Hondius on which there were several cases of hantavirus. This is a rapidly developing story, like I said. In fact, I just got another update that I'm going to add here. 3 of the ship's guests have died of hantavirus, with a total of 5 cases so far having been confirmed. And when they say confirmed, they mean by a laboratory. That's kind of a long process they have to go through to confirm it. That's why we are getting more and more information about how many people have it as the story develops. It's now suspected that ground zero for the outbreak may have been a bird watching excursion that was taken by the elderly couple who were the first 2 people to show symptoms and who passed away a few days ago. So the theory is that as part of this excursion, they went to a landfill where they came in contact with rodents, and rodents are the main mode of transmission. It has been confirmed that no, mice, rodents, anything like that were found on the ship. They set out a bunch of traps, all of which, attracted nothing. So this is their theory, is that it happened when they went ashore and they went to this landfill to do bird watching. In a disturbing development, a man who had taken an earlier leg of the journey before returning home to Switzerland has now also been diagnosed with hantavirus. And even worse, and this is the thing that just broke right before we were getting ready to record, it now appears to be confirmed that the particular strain of hantavirus involved here is the Andes strain. And what makes that kind of bad is twofold. One, it is the most fatal type of hantavirus, but it's also the only type that can be transmitted from human to human, which of course makes it, it's still not easy to transmit, but that makes it easier. Meanwhile, getting people off the ship has been difficult, given that some territories have refused to let people disembark. And, if this all feels familiar, the World Health Organization says this is not a COVID-like situation, and that, even the chance of it spreading to the larger population is incredibly, incredibly low. If there's a downside to this, it's less to do with cruising and more looking to the future, because there are several big things planned in the coming months and later this year that will bring people from all over the world to the United States. So if there happen to be outbreaks in these places, even just 1 or 2 cases, they could be brought here. The good news is that this does seem to be it kept among this small group of people. The people on the ship are now isolating. There are various plans in place that could see them, once they get on land, could see them going into quarantine for as much as 2 months. So this is definitely a developing story. We will definitely be talking about it in the next week or 2 on this show, but that's the latest that we know right now.
And what should have been a special experience for a father and son took a tragic turn on Norwegian Cruise Line's Great Stirrup Cay.
Yeah, another sad story. The pair were snorkeling at Great Stirrup Cay, as many folks do. It's a great place to go snorkeling, get your gear. At one point, the son swam ahead of his dad, only to later notice that, Pop wasn't behind him. The younger man went back and found his 83-year-old father floating with his mask off, unresponsive in the water. They got help. The lifeguards came, took him ashore. The police were called, and the Royal Bahama Police confirmed the man's death. It's likely a drowning, although both an investigation and an autopsy were planned at last we had heard.
And the Alaska cruise season is open for business now, which takes our attention there with a major attraction in Juneau will be closed for the next several weeks due to an incident, last weekend?
Yeah, we're talking about the Gold Belt tram that leaves from downtown Juneau and heads up Mount Roberts. It's a relatively short ride, but it's very exciting, very beautiful. Takes you up to a beautiful observation area and just with some of the coolest views. Although if you go up there on a foggy day, which there are many of in Alaska, you can't really see anything. Anyway, it obviously draws an awful lot of cruisers. I actually intended to do it when I was there last May, but for circumstances prevented us from doing so. But last week, as you mentioned, there was an incident in which the tram, which was carrying 5 employees, there were no guests on board, it was just 5 employees of the tram. It was coming down the mountain and it entered the station faster than expected. When it came to a stop, several of the employees were kind of like thrown about. They had minor injuries, nothing serious. Both of the people who were on board, both employees who were taken to the hospital, are reportedly fine now. But there has to, of course, be an investigation into what went wrong, and they have to make whatever repairs need to be made. So as a result, it'll be at least a couple of weeks until the tram is functioning again. This comes hot on the heels of the news that Alaskan cruises won't be able to enter Tracy Arms Fjord because of a tsunami that happened a little bit ago. So anyway, if you were booked on the Gold Belt tram through your cruise line, you should automatically get a refund. It'll come back to your original method of payment. If you booked through the tram company itself, you'll need to reach out to them directly in order to sort of arrange to get a refund.
And we'll wrap things up here with a couple of news items that are connected with a common theme.
That's right. And that theme is booze. First comes word that Norwegian Cruise Line is effective immediately. They're raising the gratuities, which are automatically applied to the price of their quote unquote free at sea drink package. If there's a bright spot, it's that this is only happening on cruises that last between 2 and 5 days. On cruises of 6 days or longer, which NCL very happily pointed out is the majority of their sailings, the price remains the same. That increase, by the way, is from $28.50 per person per day to $32 per person per day. Again, that's the gratuities that are added to the free at sea drink package if you decide to take that. This whole thing was handled a little bit shadily, if you ask me, because generally when cruise lines make an announcement about gratuities going up, they'll say like, okay, this is going to happen on September 1st. If you buy the package between now and then and pay it off, you can pay the original amount. You don't have to pay the increase. But not only did this go into effect immediately, but Norwegian actually sent a communication to various travel partners and things, asking them not to inform their customers that this was going to happen, that they could tell them on May 1st, but this was going into effect on May 1st. So it was basically them saying, yeah, we don't want people saving money. Sure, they didn't say that, but that's kind of what it boils down to.
And then the second story was what?
Well, the second story, which is also alcohol related, is specifically with regards to folks who are headed to the Bahamas this month. They have an election day coming up, which is going to be on May 12th. And it turns out that, like a lot of other countries, the Bahamas does not allow liquor to be served or sold on election day between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So this means that bars will be closed. All of those duty-free shops that you find, they will all be closed. You will not be able to buy liquor in the Bahamas, essentially. Now, If you're thinking to yourself, that's okay, we're going to be on a private island that day, so we should be able to drink as much as we want. Well, hold your horses, because it turns out that those, meaning the private islands, are impacted as well. Some cruise lines are actually changing their itineraries in order to avoid their passengers having to be alcohol-free for a day. Others, like Disney and Royal Caribbean, are, at least right now, expected to simply not sell alcohol during visits on those days. Personally, I would not want to be the guest services person who has to deal with all the people coming back from the island and complaining about the fact that they weren't able to buy alcohol. This actually happened like 2 weeks ago, I think it was, around April 30th, so less than 2 weeks. That was another day that was the pre-election, and alcohol was not allowed to be served. And apparently this came as a surprise to a lot of people, because Royal Caribbean, which has their new destination there, they sell passes, which are all inclusive, including alcohol for the day. And they had sold a bunch of them. And then on that day found out, oh, yeah, we can't actually serve alcohol. So when people got back on board, probably very unhappy, they received a refund in the form of a onboard credit for the amount that was charged for the alcohol package that day.
Interesting. Did that wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I was just updating an article for Alaska, and do you know this year there are 25 more ships sailing? So last year there were 40 ships, big ships sailing in Alaska. This year there's 65 ships sailing in Alaska with over 2 million people going, which is like a record.
See, that's the kind of thing that makes me think maybe there is something to the over tourism thing. Like, must we overcrowd everything? Just because it's a hot spot now. And it's interesting because Norwegian Cruise Line had their earnings call earlier this week. And one of the things they discussed was that they had done a kind of poor job in the past year where their itinerary planning was concerned. They moved a lot of stuff out of the Caribbean that they should have put in the Caribbean. And so there is definitely, there's a lot of planning that goes into this. And we kept getting press releases over and over again about ships that were going to be sailing in Alaska. And I started to think to myself, wow, how many ships can Alaska handle? It's almost like a riddle, how many ships can you fit in Alaska before Alaska says no more?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, man, because they just keep on building them. Royal's like what, up to, I think we reported last week, 2 more. So there's going to be 7 total Icon class ships. So it's like they're going to run out of ports. It's going to be all to private islands and stuff.
Doug, while we're here, I just got a little bit of news that we might as well throw in at the end here. Okay. We reported a couple weeks ago that Amsterdam was going to be the first Holland America ship to go under the new Evolution program that they're spending $500 million on. I think it's 5 ships that are all going to get updates. And we knew that the ship was going to do this, but what they didn't reveal was exactly where the ship would be sailing afterwards. And we just got news that it will be cruising Europe, the Caribbean, and the Panama Canal when it returns newly refreshed as of December 2027. So that's, new. You can go to hollandamerica.com and you can get information on exactly where it will be going. But it looks like it'll return to service officially on December 2nd with a 7-day Western Mediterranean itinerary out of Barcelona, Spain. And then it'll be doing a 13-day transatlantic to Fort Lauderdale, where people will be able to book a variety of cruises. So that's just fresh off the presses, as they say.
There you go. Staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you, my friend.
Glad to be here.
You're listening to Cruise Radio, America's trusted voice of the cruise industry.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
Before the MSC Grandiosa came over to North America, it was sailing out of Europe, where Jen and her family sailed it out of Barcelona. She's on the line to talk about the ship itself and, everything MSC Grandiosa. How you doing, Jen?
Great. Thanks, Doug.
Well, before we get to the ship itself, you're here in Jacksonville, like me. What made you want to sail this voyage on MSC Grandiosa? Was it because you sailed the Lyrica a couple of years ago?
Actually, because it made a stop in Tunisia. And I really wanted to visit Tunisia. So that was a big motivation. And then it made some stops, places we had already been, but we wanted to revisit them again. And it was priced really affordably. So we went for it.
And you head over to Barcelona from Jacksonville. Any pre-cruise time before boarding the Grandiosa?
We did. We had maybe about a day and a half. We had visited Barcelona previously. So we just had, about a day to just kind of catch the highlights and kind of wander around a little bit. So make sure we had plenty of time to get to the ship.
MSC, along with other European cruise lines, run what they call a ferry schedule or interline schedule in Europe, where you can hop on and hop off at different ports of call if you'd like. So I guess 2 questions here. First, was embarkation crowded because not everyone was boarding in Barcelona? And how long did it take you from the curb to the ship at the Barcelona cruise terminal?
Yeah, I would say there was probably the most people that I saw embarking was in Barcelona. And probably by the time we got in line, our cruise arrival time was between 1 and 2. And it was probably about 45 minutes after we got in line, give or take. But by the time we got to our cabin, it was already ready. So we didn't have to find a place to hang out until our cabin was ready.
You make your way on board the Grandiosa. What were your first impressions?
It's large. It is 17 decks, I want to say 16, 17 decks. It's big and it's very nicely done. I thought the decor was very nice. They have some cool kind of sculptures. They have, a grand staircase that has like crystal steps. So it kind of has a bit of a wow factor, but tons of areas to hang out in for sure.
Awesome. You make your way to your stateroom. You mentioned you grabbed a great deal on this sailing. So what kind of stateroom did you have for this 7-night cruise, and how was it with you and the family throughout the week?
So we were up on the 14th deck, which I wanted to be. I wanted to be one floor under the buffet and near the fitness center. So that was kind of by design. We did have a balcony room, but it was one where the ship kind of comes into tapers in. So it was one of those. So it was always shaded, which I would have liked to have a little bit more sun. And it wasn't very private because I felt like you could just see into everybody else's balcony and all the balconies below you. It felt somewhat, I don't know, intrusive maybe.
Yeah.
And if you were like, parallel or flush with the side of the ship, I don't think you have that same feeling. Mm-hmm. But yeah, with this one, our balcony was bigger than a regular sized balcony. But if I went to the end of the balcony, I could look in everybody's balcony. So I don't know. That was one reason I probably wouldn't book this room again. And since we were underneath the buffet, we heard chairs all the time being pulled out. And that was really annoying. So I definitely would not book a room right under the buffet again.
This class of ship, if you're at the very front looking down linear, there's an inset about midship, so the cabins kind of bump in, I guess you could call it. Was it because of the positioning and you were in that inset where you felt like there was no privacy, or would that have been on any cabin that you booked?
No, we've had balcony rooms before, and I think Yeah, definitely the fact that it's inset, you could see more. I don't know, maybe it's just because of the way that it's concaved in that you can see more. And the fact that we were so high up too, that we could see everybody's cabin and or everybody's balcony. And I feel like if it's on the outside, you don't have that. You'd have to really lean over almost.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, you didn't have to lean over. You could just be at the railing and see inside, everybody's balcony.
How was the stateroom compared to your voyage on the Lyrica?
It was nicely designed. I thought there was more storage on this one. It has I think a great layout. It felt, roomy enough there was just 3 of us in the stateroom, but I thought it was great. And, our room steward did an amazing job of keeping the room nice and tidy.
Cool. Curious, did you have any chance or any opportunities to bid for an upgrade in the yacht club or anything before you're sailing? It seems like the people I've interviewed the past couple of months who've sailed MSC have all gotten that magical upgrade bid email.
Yes, and I did actually, and I did put in for an upgrade to a room that was actually 2 rooms, so it had a separate bedroom, more of a suite. And I think I just bid $200. So it would be $200 for just the main 2 people in the cabin. So it would have been a $400 upgrade or bid. And we didn't get it, which was fine. And I think to upgrade to the
yacht club.
Yeah, the yacht club. It was, I want to say maybe an extra $1,000 total. So maybe $500 per person. And it just was it's fine. We didn't, and I knew, especially with the Mediterranean cruise, we're not on the ship that much. So, but that email did come through, and we did take advantage of that on the Lyrica.
So let's talk about the food on the MSC Grandiosa. We'll start at the buffet area. How was the selection in there throughout the week? And during peak times, did you notice if it was super crowded where you couldn't find a seat at all?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because we've been doing this a while, we've learned the secret when you go to the buffet, go to the back. Because especially on a lot of these larger ships, they have multiple stations of the same food, and everybody likes to stop at that first station. So we always just go to the very back of the buffet dining room. And it would be virtually empty. And especially for breakfast, the omelet station, there would be nobody waiting. And it was all the same food that they had when you first come into the buffet. So we never had any trouble finding a seat. They did have to kind of stop people from going into the buffet, and they would hold people back and then kind of let so many people go in at a time. We kind of found a workaround to this. And because we were on a time schedule, we just went up one floor and went down through the back where the pool is and went in through the buffet and where we normally would sit, and there was nobody there. So there are some workarounds. Yeah, it did get crowded, but if you don't stop at those first stations and keep going, we didn't have any trouble. And the food, it is a little bit more European, being a European cruise line. So you're not going to have the chicken tenders and mac and cheese and that kind of food, but they do have burgers and hot dogs and fries and that kind of stuff. They have obviously great pizza. We always found something that we enjoyed and tried something new every time we went.
The main dining room, the ship has multiple main dining rooms, right? Because I know not every single one is really big. How did that play out, and how was the food in there?
Yeah, I want to say it has 3 dining rooms. We had the 5:30 dining time because the late dining was 9 p.m. And that's a little too late for us.
Yeah.
So we had the early dining at 5:30. And it was fine. Sometimes it was a little slower, the service was a little slower. So we would try and, get in and get out to get to the show or whatever else we wanted to do. But the food was fine. The service was fine. We never had any any issues. And what's nice is being from the US, you have the opportunity for your bottled water is free in the main dining room. Otherwise, you're charged for bottled water.
Does this ship have the push for service button on the table where if you wanted a drink or to call your waiter, you would push it and someone would arrive within a couple of moments?
Oh, no, this one doesn't.
No. Any specialty restaurants on this 7-nighter?
There was some, but we did not partake in any.
Gotcha. And then how about any kind of grab and go food or any kind of places that may have, piqued your interest along the promenade or anything that you could have stopped at?
Not really. I know they had like a crepe and they had some ice cream, but no, nothing that we couldn't live without. So
Gotcha.
nope, we didn't take advantage of any of those.
All righty. Then how about the entertainment on this 7-night cruise? How did it stack up for y'all?
It is different being European. They do a system where you have to reserve your, not really your seats, but reserve like going to the show. And it'll tell you how many seats are available because they would have like 3 different shows a night. So if you didn't reserve your seats, you could go 10 minutes prior to the show starting. And so we always got to see the show we wanted to, we didn't have any trouble. And we would just make sure we reserved ahead of time. So then we could go in when we wanted to and get the seats we wanted. So it was fine. I mean, the entertainment, some songs would be in Italian and some songs would be in English or, their shows, they were fine. They weren't going to win any awards. They're not Disney shows, but it was entertaining. And we went to the show every night that they offered it and it was fine.
Okay. I'm curious because you are gold status, you status matched last time you cruised on MSC. Does that get you like any kind of reserved seating or anything for the entertainment?
No, not for the shows. They do have another show in, I think, a smaller theater that is, I think it was 15 euros and that included a drink in the show. So I don't know if you maybe had specialty seating there, but we didn't partake in that show, in any of those shows.
Yeah, that's the one that's behind the casino on the very back of the ship.
Yeah, it's like a Cirque du Soleil kind of show or something. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, something like that. All right. Yeah. Well, how about the crowds and congestion during the sea days? And did you find out how crowded the ship was, or was it at capacity?
That's a great question. I think they said there was 5,000 people on the ship, maybe. It was pretty full. And sea days, we only had the one sea day, and it was pretty full. I mean, I found a spot by the pool, and then I was kind of keeping track of the seat that there had been a towel there, and then it had been over an hour that nobody had came back, and I went to move it, and I got reprimanded by a woman in Italian, and so I said, okay. And then I would say maybe 15 minutes later, she came over to me and told me I could sit there. So
that was nice of her.
Yeah, it was nice. So, and but there was always lots and lots of activities. I noticed that around the pool, and especially on that sea day, there was always something going on. But we're not much to sit in the sun, being from Florida, we can do that anytime. So I don't necessarily need to lounge in the sun, but it was pretty full on that sea day. That's for sure.
Yeah, the ship holds around 6,300 or so it doesn't sound like it was too bad. How about the casino as far as the smoke situation in and around it? Did you ever have to transit it through your cruise?
No, we never had to walk through there. And to be honest, I don't even know where it was. So I never smelled any smoke from it. And yeah, it was completely avoidable because I couldn't even tell you where it was.
Very good. Let's talk about the ports of call then. You started in Barcelona. Give us your first port of call. Give us the highlight, then we'll move to the next one.
Okay. Well, I guess one quick thing I want to say about Barcelona. A lot of people say that you can't walk to the dock or to the terminal. We did. We're pretty active people, and so it is walkable. So if anybody ever wanted to walk to the terminal, you can walk there. We stayed near Las Ramblas in Barcelona. So, So there's that. And then our first port was, I think it's Ligolet in Tunisia. And we got off there and we walked, exchanged some money, and then we took the subway car. It's like a train car to Tunis and just kind of checked out the capital a little bit. We did go to it's like a big bazaar place, and it was too packed, too many people. Nope. And it was all kind of the same stuff over and over. If you've been to any of those like markets, it's all the same stuff. So then we were going to take the train to, I believe it's City Bou Said, and it was broken down. And then we ended up being on a bus with a lot of other Tunisian folks. So then we took the bus to City Bou Said, and it's beautiful. It's very similar to Santorini, the white houses, blue roofs, blue doorways, really, really pretty, but very crowded. So I think there was another ship in town, and the streets were just jam-packed with people. And then after that, we ended up taking just a taxi back to the ship. The nice thing with Tunisia, it's very, very affordable. So your money goes really far there. So it was great. You know, I felt like we were rich, but so that was good there. Beautiful place to visit. After that, we went to Palermo in Sicily, and that was great. The ship docks very, right there. We got off the ship and went for a run up to, there's a church. It's a couple miles away. So we went up, ran up to there, and I saw that, got up there before any of the tourist buses got up there, which was beautiful. Then we came back, got cleaned up on the ship, and then met a local for a walking tour of Palermo. And that was great. Although Palermo was really dirty, a very dirty city. I wasn't expecting that. So lots and lots of garbage in the streets. And I even asked our tour guide about it, and she said, yeah, it's kind of a problem for them there. But otherwise, it was really nice to see that part of Italy. We hadn't been to Sicily before.
It surprised me too on the garbage and kind of how dirty Palermo was when I was there last year. It reminded me a lot of like Naples when they have a garbage strike and there's just stuff everywhere. You would think whoever was in charge, like, okay, we have a strike right now, but we do have to clean this city up for thousands of people bringing in thousands of dollars.
Yeah, when I asked her, I said, I'm like, I'm sorry, this is really dirty. And she said, yes, it's such a problem. And she's like, Sicilians keep their homes so clean, but she's like, they just brush all the garbage outside. And she said, you'll see a garbage can full of garbage and people will still try and put more garbage in it. And she's like, it's such a problem. But Palermo has so much history, and it's such a fascinating city. It's one of the most conquered cities in the world. Yeah. And so it has such a great, mixture of like all these different cultures and architecture, and it was great. But yeah, I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. It just was something that was very, I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm. What was up next?
Then after that, we went to Naples. We have been to Naples before, and previously we had done Pompeii and, some of the other sites. So this time, we wanted to do something a little different. So we rented a car and drove to, Vesuvius, and then did the hike. So we drove there, parked, and then did the hike up the volcano. And then the bad thing I felt like our port time in Naples was really kind of silly. It was 6:30 to 3. So it was too early. Like we got there too early to really do anything. And then 3:00 was just so short. So we really couldn't go too far. So we just did the hike and then returned the rental car, did a little walking around the streets, and then back on the ship. And then after Naples was Livorno. I was a little disappointed because I didn't know we couldn't walk from the port to the city. And you have to take the shuttle bus. And then from the shuttle bus kind of drops you off closer to the beginning of like the port, like the industrial part. And then we walked from there. But we lost a lot of time waiting for that bus, because we had tickets to go to just a couple of things to see in Florence, and the ship changed the times we were going there. They changed the times maybe a week before we left. So unfortunately, that really kind of mucked up our visit there. But we did walked to the train station, and then we took the train to Florence. We quick stop in Pisa, and then the train to Florence. And then Florence, we were only there. We only got a couple of hours there, and I had prearranged tickets to go see the Statue of David. So we saw that, and then it was like just a quick run through the town, pretty much, and then back on the train because it's like an hour and some change all the way back to Livorno, and then plus to get back to the ship. It was just, I don't know. I felt like that day we kind of got cheated a little bit.
You certainly made a day out of it.
Yeah. We try and pack as much in as we can. I had tickets to go up in the dome of the Basilica, but since the ship had changed times, I couldn't. Our time was too late, and so thankfully I found another tourist that was actually visiting from California, and they didn't have tickets. And I said, "Oh, we have tickets. You can go use them." So they were pretty happy. So they got to go up to the dome.
There you
but
go.
so it all worked out, I guess, for them. So then back to the ship. But yeah, it was just like, I think we had to be back on the ship by 5.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was just too short of port times. Then our next stop was Marseille in France. And there we actually took Uber to a car rental that I had prearranged. And we went to Calunk National Park. It's about an hour or so away from the port, and in like the city of Cassis, I think is how it's pronounced. So we drove there, parked, and then did some hiking in the national park, which was great. Beautiful, beautiful water. Everything was great. Beautiful day. I would have, of course, loved a little bit more time just to see that area a little bit more, but that's the hard part about being on a cruise. You're on that, like, watching your watch, like, okay, it's time to head back. It's time to head back. And then we got back to Marseille and dropped off the rental car, and then got a Uber back to the ship. And then we were back in Barcelona. I guess the sea day was between maybe Barcelona and Tunisia. Like when we first got on the ship, I want to say is when the sea day was. So it was pretty early in our cruise. So I didn't feel like, sometimes when it's late in a cruise, it's a nice rest day. But we had the rest day at the beginning of our cruise.
Yeah. Cassis is one of those picturesque towns. I know you went to the national park, but did you go to the fishing village there?
We drove through it, but no, we didn't have time to stop. I know it's so picturesque and so pretty.
Yeah, it definitely is. So you said that was you wrapped it up then, you're back in Barcelona. How was your debark process?
Super smooth. We had hired somebody to come take us to the airport, and I wasn't sure about traffic or anything like that. And it was really smooth. We did have them take our luggage off. Usually sometimes we'll just drag our own luggage off just to save time. But we did have them take our bags off, and there was no problem getting our bag from the terminal. The worst part was, the driver was waiting for us, but we had told the driver like 10 a.m. and at 9:30, he was like, "I'm here, I'm waiting. And we're like, okay. But the ship, we didn't have any issues. The only thing I would say with that is we did kind of like the express checkout, and I never got a copy of our final bill. And so I was kind of like, because I didn't know what was on it. I didn't know what we were paying for. And I had to, once I got back to Florida, I had to email a couple of times and to try and get that final bill. And MSC did send it to me, and it was correct. There wasn't anything wrong on it, but it was just like, because I don't know, I kind of expected a final bill like in my stateroom or something, but there wasn't anything like that. So that was a little odd to me, but other than that, no issues.
When you sailed MSC a few years back, did you have to like manually register your credit card when you walked on board? Do you remember that, or was it all done like at embarkation?
I think it must have all been done at embarkation. I don't really remember any issues with it.
Yeah, I know MSC, maybe because you're a European cruise line that you didn't have to do that over there. But here in the U.S., you used to have to go to a kiosk and wait in this like queue up and there's like 5 machines on board and you had to register your card and everything. But maybe that was because of just like so many, the demographic is so vast and different currencies and all that. But well, good. At least you didn't have to do that. So everything was just on pre-cruise or at the terminal then for you?
Yeah. But I did see those kiosks, but I never saw any lines or anything by them. But they did have them. And maybe because it's such a weird, like the fact that there's not everybody's getting all off at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this mass exodus every 7 days. Like, there's always this flush of people coming on and off.
Well, this is your second time sailing MSC, so there's something you like about them. So give me some pre-cruise or give me some first-time tips if someone's listening saying, you know what, I want to give it a go. What would you tell them about either sailing the Mediterranean with MSC or the Grandiosa?
It's going to be different. If you're used to like an American cruise line where especially the dinners where you're really catered to, it's not going to be that same kind of doting, I guess, on you. And there's language barriers, there's cultural barriers, there's people are just I don't want to say act differently, but especially let's say, with this one being like more of an Italian cruise line, typically Italians are a little bit more, I wouldn't say aggressive, but a little more in your personal space and may, reach for things when a little closer than what an American would. So, there's just boundaries are blurred a little bit more maybe. And all the announcements are done in, 6 different languages. And some people could find that annoying or it wasn't a problem because I'm learning Italian and my husband's learning German. So it was kind of fun to, find out, decipher words and figure out what they were talking about. But it is different. It's not, we thought the staff was really friendly, but we would always address them first, depending on whatever country we were at, we would use that language just for fun. Mm-hmm. But, I feel like other ships, the staff addresses you first. But it seems like MSC, you need to address them first.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a service kind of thing, like they don't speak unless spoken to kind of thing, or I don't know. But yeah, we never encountered anybody that was rude. And if I said, good morning to someone, they always responded. There was never, nothing like that. But it wasn't as, like if you're on another ship, they might always address you first. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. And I was going to say, so as long as you kind of go in with like a knowing of that and know it's going to be a little different and you're a little bit more anonymous. You're not being catered to as much because there's just so many different cultures and languages and getting used to hearing different languages all the time is kind of fun too.
Yeah. So it's very European, right? Like if you want food, we're here to bring you your food. If you want a drink, we're here to get you a drink, not to have a conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not. Yeah. And there's no, we haven't sailed an American cruise line recently, but like the tipping is just like, they just add it to your bill at the end. And so they're not, I feel like it's a little more level playing field. They're not trying to vie for tips or something like, because I feel like some of the other cruise lines could be a little fakey because they're trying so hard.
Oh yeah.
MSC, like they're not trying hard. So it's fine. Like they seem very content.
Gotcha. Looking back on this 7-night cruise, what was the biggest highlight for your family?
Oh, I would have to say, we enjoy being on the ship, being like waking up in the different ports, seeing the different ports from the sea and coming into them. I think that's just so fun to see a city versus flying in and then you're already there kind of like I like that aspect of it of just coming into like it's all coming into focus and just exploring new places we haven't been. Or even new activities where we've never, we haven't done before.
I've only sailed MSC once in the Med and Costa a couple of times, but I would have to say with both of those lines, I look at it as getting me from point A to B to C to D and so on, and then back to the port. If I wanted a more bougie or luxury experience, I would definitely book the yacht club, at least on MSC, because like you said, it's very matter of fact. And if that's not something you're comfortable with, book the yacht club or maybe try another cruise line because there are dozens out there.
Exactly. And, if you're using it for a vessel, a transportation, then it's great. And you're going to have dinner every night and you don't have to find it. Like you can just relax. That's, I think, the beauty of it. And at the price point, because I know some of the other cruise lines can be double the price of MSC. So, and it was a nice new ship. Like everything was really clean. Like it wasn't dirty. There wasn't glasses left around there. It was very clean. They do a great job taking care of the ship. And, another nice point with MSC is they will let you bring beer on board. I don't know how the other cruise lines are doing it now, but, we always if we're in a foreign country, we like to get some of the beers from that country, and they don't have any problems with you bringing it back on board and having it. You could bring it into the main dining room. You could bring it to the buffet. They seem to not be as I don't know. They're just very lax on stuff like that. You can bring your own sodas on. It doesn't seem to be a thing for them.
Did you have any of the packages?
No, we just got the water in the dining room. And then when we were at port, we would grab, some Coke Zeros or whatever we wanted. And then my husband would grab some beers and we'd just have those at dinner.
Very nice. Well, in closing here, your final thoughts of MSC Grandiosa.
Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to book again on her. I would obviously do a different stateroom, but we thought the gym was great. The only thing, there wasn't a lot of late night dining. So people that like dining options all the time, definitely she's not the ship for you. The Lyrica, I felt like they had pizza all the time. It's not quite the same with the Grandiosa. But I thought it was a great ship. And if the ports of call, if the times were longer, it would be a perfect sailing. It just, those short port times were killing me. But otherwise, it was a great experience. It would be good for somebody who just wants a little taste in each city and somebody who doesn't want to go far. It would be fine. But, we like to get out and stretch our legs. So it was a little bit of a hindrance for us.
All right, Jen, thanks for this review of MSC Grandiosa. We sure appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,